You cannot buy a $2 million Lamborghini, pour watered-down gasoline into the tank, and genuinely expect it to survive the highway without breaking down spectacularly in the fast lane. Yet for reasons that defy every known principle of organizational logic, the Los Angeles Dodgers front office apparently believed the fundamental rules of human biology had granted them a permanent exemption. The wealthiest franchise in baseball constructed a rotation that reads like a fantasy league wet dream on paper, then systematically transformed their own pitching staff into a revolving door of MRI machines and injury reports. Now, with the 2026 season grinding forward and the trade deadline approaching like an oncoming freight train, generalized panic has taken complete control of Hollywood's decision-making process. The tactical bombshell analysts are currently dissecting reads like a medical bankruptcy certificate for the entire front office. The Dodgers are prepared to discard Tyler Glasnow alongside golden prospects to rip back-to-back Cy Young winner Tarik Skubal from the Detroit Tigers' grip. Today we're performing a full surgical dissection of this desperate extortion attempt. We'll expose why Los Angeles finally acknowledged that money cannot manufacture durability, how baseball's swift justice cornered the Detroit Tigers inside their own pride, and what it truly means to absorb the enormous risk of trading your glass ace for a 200-inning workhorse who actually shows up every fifth day. Before I spread the financial and medical spreadsheets across your screen, I'm sliding the executive pen directly into your hand. You're controlling Los Angeles' future right now. Do you have the cold-blooded nerve to ship Tyler Glasnow out of California, openly admitting the contract you handed him was a catastrophic organizational error, while also surrendering Zaire Hope's ceiling and Emmett Sheehan's arm, all to guarantee Tarik Skubal's steel durability anchors your October rotation? Or does trading this much organizational equity at mid-season signal the kind of desperation that rival front offices will exploit mercilessly for the remainder of the year? Think without sentiment, because Ohtani's championship clock waits for nobody's recovery timeline. Let's survey the tactical carnage. Yes, the Dodgers hoisted back-to-back World Series trophies, and that achievement deserves every ounce of credit it receives. But the 2026 rotation is becoming a medical dark comedy that nobody inside Dodger Stadium finds remotely amusing. Yamamoto, Snell, Glasnow, Sasaki. Assemble these four names on a single roster, and what you created isn't a pitching staff. It's a glass cannon exhibition. Every single arm on that list carries injury history substantial enough to make insurance actuaries refuse the policy outright. Ohtani pitches under a strict innings limitation that tightens with every passing month. When August arrives and the pennant race reaches its most physically punishing stretch, Los Angeles possesses exactly 0 reliable arms capable of devouring innings without a medical bulletin attached. They need Skubal with the urgency of a patient who ignored symptoms for 6 months and finally arrived at the emergency room. The man consumed 190 innings last season while posting a 2.21 ERA that made opposing lineups look genuinely confused about their own professional capabilities. He was a postseason monster when the stakes compressed and every pitch carried playoff weight. He represents the exact insurance policy the Dodgers front office arrogantly declined to purchase during the winter, convinced their existing talent would simply outlast the biological inevitabilities that humbled every rotation before theirs. This is precisely where baseball's swift justice distributes punishment to both offices simultaneously, and the poetic cruelty of the timing deserves full appreciation. For the Dodgers, karma targeted the ego directly and precisely. The organization operated under the assumption that financial omnipotence could manage fragile arms indefinitely, that their sports science department and player development infrastructure could simply override the human body's mechanical limits through superior monitoring technology. The punishment extracted for that institutional arrogance is specific and brutal. They must now transfer their own organizational risk in the form of Glasnow's damaged contract while simultaneously burning the prospect capital they hoarded all winter, paying a full desperation tax to fix a problem their own offseason philosophy created. But the swift justice descending on Detroit is arguably more savage in its precision. Months ago, the Tigers sat across a metaphorical negotiating table from these same Dodgers, reviewed a package of elite young talent that would completely rebuild their farm system, and sent it back with a dismissive rejection. They banked a valiant roll, convinced their competitive window justified retaining Skubal at the cost of surrendering a franchise-reshaping prospect haul. The karma waiting patiently on the other side of that decision is now sprinting toward them at full speed. Free agency arrives at the conclusion of 2026, and Scott Boras doesn't conduct negotiations. He conducts financial hostage situations with spreadsheets as weapons. Boras will position Skubal as the most valuable pitcher in baseball history when that market opens, constructing a $300 million demand floor with the clinical detachment of someone who has never once lost sleep over a team's payroll complications. Detroit's ownership carries a well-documented institutional reluctance to operate at that financial altitude, and every executive in baseball understands their ceiling. The punishment for playing brave in the winter is arriving now in its full form. The Tigers are becoming hostages to their own ticking clock, potentially forced to accept Glasnow's cracked glass and whatever prospect padding accompanies him, simply because the alternative, losing their franchise cornerstone for zero compensation, became psychologically unbearable. The asymmetry of this negotiation fascinates precisely because both sides arrive at the table weakened by their own previous decisions. Los Angeles negotiates from desperation, having publicly announced their rotation fragility to the entire league through a parade of injury reports. Detroit negotiates from a position of declining leverage, watching their window to maximize Skubal's trade value shrink with every week the deadline approaches, and Boras' eventual demands grow larger in the front office's collective imagination. When two desperate parties negotiate, the transaction that emerges rarely resembles fair market value for either side. Consider what Glasnow's inclusion actually represents in this package beyond the obvious baseball calculations. Sending him to Detroit isn't merely a salary dump or a prospect sweetener. It's the Dodgers publicly acknowledging that their 2023 offseason vision for him failed to materialize as designed. Every time Glasnow takes the mound for the Tigers while his former teammates struggle with rotation depth in Los Angeles, that acknowledgement echoes through the trade's legacy. It's organizational accountability written into the transaction itself, an admission that the plan required correction at significant cost. Zaire Hope's presence in any package heading toward Detroit carries its own weight of consequence. His Double-A performance last season established legitimate star potential, the kind of projection that makes prospect evaluators speak carefully and deliberately. Surrendering that ceiling alongside Sheehan's demonstrated major league competence means the Dodgers are emptying compartments they spent years filling, betting everything on Skubal's durability, delivering the October performance their current rotation cannot guarantee. The operating table boils, and this contract just landed directly in your lap, staring at the complete absence of health and reliability currently infecting our pitching staff. Do you slam the green button, gut our prospect pipeline, ship Glasnow to Michigan, and crown Skubal as our October hero? Or do you protect the farm system, trust the medical staff to manufacture a miracle before the World Series, and pray the injury gods finally extend some professional courtesy to Hollywood? Flood the comments with your unfiltered verdict right now. Hollywood has never shown mercy when it comes to discarding broken stars, and this front office just proved that principle applies to their own acquisitions as ruthlessly as to anyone else. And do not move away from this channel for a single second, because while we're engineering the salvation of our rotation, a silent crisis erupted along the East Coast overnight. The Boston Red Sox just placed a bizarre emergency proposal on the table to repatriate a veteran at bargain pricing in a desperate attempt to salvage their own crumbling rotation. The identity of that emergency gambit? I'm blowing the cover off everything in the next video. Stay locked in.